Alright, what's up guys? Welcome to the next episode in the How to Flip a House series. Today we're going to talk about what are you flipping? Obviously it's a property, it's a subject home, but the key today in this video is going to talk about what you're actually putting your money towards. So you, at this point, already know how to figure out an ARV or an after repair value, and you know how to put together a pretty simple construction budget. If you don't know these things yet, go back and check out the other two videos on how to flip a house in this series. They will explain those two things. Figuring out rehab costs and figuring out the after repair value are key. But once you find that property and you've put that together, what are you actually spending your money on? So this is what this episode is going to teach you, is what you have to spend your money on versus what you want to spend your money on, and how to put the two things together to figure out if this property, this subject property, is going to work for your project and make you money, okay? So we're going to walk through, really simply, I'm going to explain how to start that process when you're looking at the property and walking through it before you sit down to work through your construction budget. And then we're going to go to the computer and we're going to look at a couple example properties that I've done in the past, and we're going to kind of summarize what I'm going to talk about right here real quick to make sense of all of it. And then you'll have some keys for success when you start looking at those properties and you're walking them. You're going to do it the same way a home inspector basically would do it, but you're going to do it thinking as an investor to figure out if this project is going to work and how to put your money on paper to start building that budget in your spreadsheet, okay? So the keys when you're looking at a property are the same, like I said, the same way a home inspector would look at it. You're going to look at this property when you go to see it from the top down and the outside in, okay? So you're going to start with the top, which is the roof, and you're going to look at that roof and determine if you've got to put money towards it. This doesn't mean you need to be a licensed roofer, but you're going to look at it initially, probably during your inspection period, and you're going to have a home inspector say, this roof needs work or it doesn't. At that point, you can bring in a licensed roofer, which is meaning you're building your team. You're going to look at this roof, and you're going to determine if you're going to spend money on it or not. And that's a key. If you don't have a roof that's going to be watertight and it's not damaged, then you're going to have problems with everything else inside the home. That's pretty obvious, but you need to think about that. The other piece of this puzzle is your MEPs, okay? Your MEPs are your mechanical, your electrical, and your plumbing. And these three things, you need to figure out if you're spending money on them. Again, when you hire a home inspector and you're under contract on this property, you're going to read through the report to determine if those three things are going to need to have money put towards them outside of maybe changing floor plan on some level. If they actually need a full system upgrade, you need to know whether you can certify these systems or if you've got to basically put them back all new. So a full house rewire, new furnace AC if it's forced air. If you've got plumbing, like your main line is broken in an area, maybe it's under the garage and needs to be moved. There's lots of factors that need to come into play on these MEPs. So you have to walk this property knowing that you may have to spend money on your MEPs and your roof. And if these four things need money, you have to put money towards those things first. There's also a structural component that may have to have some attention made to it based on the home inspection report and if you had a structural engineer come in. Now, real quick, if you have a structural engineer come in and they're looking at it for you and there's work that needs to be done, this may be an area where you need to walk away, especially if it's one of your first properties. You don't really want to get into structural stuff unless, again, you're changing floor plans. So keep that in mind. As you get more adept at doing this, you may start playing with bigger projects. I'm going to show you a project that was really, really big. It was like one of the biggest flips you can do as far as a flipper is concerned, and show you the yay and nay on mistakes that were made on that one and why I should have probably pulled back. But you're going to kind of understand that on the computer here in a bit. So things to consider real quick. MEPs, you may have to get those certified. And that, again, is by a licensed contractor, a mechanical contractor, an electrician, or a master plumber needs to go and actually certify those systems. Plumbing's a little bit harder to certify. That may just require work. But the other two systems and the roof, you can get certified, okay? So keeping that in mind, we're going to jump on the computer. We're going to walk through kind of more in depth of what that means, and then we're going to go through some examples of some properties in the past so you can understand how to put these tools together in real-world examples. So let's get to it.
Okay, guys, let's jump right into this. So like I was talking about, the
4 things to really pay attention to, not only during your initial walkthroughs, and you'll get better at doing those walkthroughs as you do more of these, but also after you've gone through inspection and you have an inspection report you're reviewing. And again, Lending Tips did a great video on how to read an inspection report, so go and check that one out on the Colt Real Estate channel too. But I talked about MEPs and roof. Again, the MEPs stand for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems and the roof. And you want to start from the top down and outside in, right? So you start from the roof, make sure that's in good condition. If not, do you need to spend money on it? How much is it going to cost for a new roof? And then outside in, meaning check the roof, then the exterior of the structure. So that includes cladding, which also means siding, stucco, okay? You want to make sure the windows are in good operable condition. They may not be new, they may be super old, but they're not leaking, they're not broken. If you need to spend money on windows, and that's something you need to jot down in your notes after you do your home inspection as well. This should say brick, not Brock. So that's brick, cladding, etc. So the exterior of the home. Again, that could mean as much as just simply painting the exterior, which I always really recommend if it needs it for sure. Then you want to go and you want to check your main electrical panel. Out here, we have most of the panels in the meters are on the exterior of the building, so that's something that would go with the outside-in mentality. But also, they can be found in garages, etc. Sometimes in basements. That you want to make sure the main electrical panel is in good working order. It's safe. That'll be determined during your home inspection, and it's up to code. So if you're doing a lot of these projects, they're going to require permits. If you're pulling permits to do any sort of electrical work or any other work, you're going to get hit with making sure that you bring things up to code. And you don't have to know what all those codes are, but you need to hire a master electrician that's licensed, that knows those codes. And again, after your home inspection, go ahead and have a subcontractor, a licensed electrician in this case, come out and price you on what work needs to be done and how much it's going to cost. The P in MEP is for plumbing. And the first thing you need to do is always get a sewer scope. A sewer scope is basically sending a camera down your main line, and that's from the property itself out to the city connection to make sure that it's free of debris, there's no broken or cracked areas, etc. They don't cost that much money. Always get one done. You're going to have a buyer on the other end do one anyway. You don't want to get caught with your pants down, literally, and have to do more work at the end of a project, especially right before you close. Don't skimp on that. Poop is expensive. It can be. It really can be for some of that work. So keep that in mind. Landscaping is another exterior thing to think about. You can make it very simple. It always adds curb appeal if you do it right. Keep it as contemporary and water-friendly as possible. Don't add too much sod. If there's an irrigation system, how much do you need to keep versus maybe get rid of some of that to go to zero-scape mentality, so forth. So keep that in mind. There might be possible structural issues that are brought up at the time of your home inspection and during your walkthroughs. Think about what that means. You can bring a structural engineer in to investigate further based on what's brought up in the home inspection, but there are possible issues you may not want to touch, especially early on if you're not comfortable. Again, you don't have to know what all that stuff is, but a structural engineer is going to tell you what needs to be done. You can then get a cost estimate to do the work he's recommending, and if that's astronomical, sometimes it's just time to walk away from the property. You can get out of those contracts based on findings in the home inspection, so keep that in mind. If you're under contract and you have a major structural issue and it's going to cost you $30,000 to $40,000 and your entire budget was going to be $60,000, you can go ahead and terminate the contract based on inspection objection. Okay, so keep that in mind. Read that inspection report that you're paying for. You got to read it. If you need help translating it, send it to me. Lending Tips is also a great resource for that. ColtRealEstate@gmail.com. You can send it to him as well. Shane@BaileyCustomHome.com is my email, so you can send it to me. I'm more than happy to read through those and give you recommendations. Once you have that in front of you and you've read through it and you want to get estimates on work, bring in licensed subcontractors. So a roofer, a mechanical contractor, an electrician, a plumber, bring those guys in to estimate the work that you may have to do before the work you want to do. And those are issues that are brought up by the home inspector on that report. So you want to make sure that you get thoroughly through that report and understand what you're going to be spending money on. And if there's too much in there, again,
you can walk from the contract based on an inspection objection. So keep that in mind. All right, that being said, that's kind of the simple version of what to do when you finally find a property and you've worked the ARVs and everything looks good and you're estimating it's probably going to need so much work. Where is that money really going to be spent? This is the way to start, okay? This is what you are flipping. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a couple projects I did in the past and kind of walk you through from simple to extensive as far as flips go. Things you can do, just kind of like get in, get out, and make a good profit on each property. And there's different examples of each one of these. So this is a house I did many years ago. It was a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It was an off-market deal. We approached the lady. She inherited this property from her cousin, and because her cousin died, and she was the only family that was actually on the will. So this lady literally moved out from Houston to live in this house, to clean out the possessions that were left behind, and then she had to figure out what she wanted to do. She was actually caring, I believe, for an animal that was at the property too. It was a really bad situation for her. She lived there a little bit over a year and decided she didn't like the Colorado cold and she wanted to go back to Houston. As she put it, she's a Houston girl. So we figured out a way to get her out of the house, made her a strong offer. Again, there was no mortgage on the property, so she was sitting on it just basically as a really nice thank you from her cousin, and she was ready to go at any price. So we paid for her moving costs. We got her all packed up, gave her a cash offer, and got her out of the house and out of the problems that were in that house that she didn't want to deal with. That being said, we initially had envisioned putting a second story on this property and making it into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath because comps supported a really, really substantial profit if we could do that. Once we got into it and the time of year we were in, we decided to keep it as a 2-bedroom, 1-bath and just hit all of the MEPs that needed work, and a new roof, exterior paint, and then basically all the things I just talked about, and prettied up the new kitchen and the 1 bathroom, and we got out of there in about 6 weeks. This was the kitchen before. Again, this was caused by some sort of fire. This is the kitchen area where the cabinets were. There was a lot of knob and tube wiring that was still in the house and active. If you don't know what knob and tube wiring is, just Google it. I'm actually making a video on some other stuff like this, but super dangerous. Long story short, we rewired the entire home, but it wasn't very big, and we had attic space to get in there, so it wasn't substantial to us as far as cost. Obviously, we gutted the kitchen, as you can see in this picture, and just basically new cabinets, countertops, tile, paint, and got out of there. So here's the kitchen afterwards. Now, one thing with the structural stuff I was talking about a minute ago, there was a brick wall that basically came all the way across to just a door opening over here. We removed most of that brick wall and kept a little bit of this open. One, for some sort of point load that we actually had to require to kind of pick up here on this house for the roof, but also it gave it a really cool architectural look. We just literally just what I call rough paint on the brick. It makes it look still old, keeps the mystique of the home, but we kind of tidied it up and did some tuck pointing in here and made it look presentable. It wasn't going to fall apart, and it gave us a little bit more room here to add some countertop space and a little bit of connection between dining room and kitchen. So new appliances, new countertops, cabinets, tile, paints, wasn't much. There's the only bathroom that was in the house. It was right back here. And we basically just new tile, new shower, new toilet, paint, and got out. We kept all the original trim in the house, and that was kind of key, especially in that neighborhood. So the second one I'm going to talk about was another off-market deal in another historic neighborhood in the Denver area, and this was an up-down duplex. And what I mean by that is there was a unit here and a unit here with 2 separate meters, even though this is originally built as a 2-story Italiano. And architecturally, it was in a really cool neighborhood. It stood out from all the other homes that were Victorians. You can see part of the neighbor's house here. We did the same thing. One family was actually ready to move back to their native country. The other 2 families were just ready to buy their own place. And I believe there was 3 families living in here in an up-down duplex, and they were ready to get out. So long story short, another cash deal, got him out of there and helped him move as well. We walked the property. It needed a lot of work. We were under the impression we would probably completely gut this house, turn it back into a single-family home, and again, needed a new roof, exterior, especially paint. You can see up here it was in rough shape. All the architectural details. This was all the stuff we were going to do from the outside. It was going to get a rewire. There were some plumbing issues. We had to move the main line that connected to the alley. It was under an existing garage, and as it turned out, we tore down that garage because I found out later that that garage was structurally compromised, to say the least. And I was worried it was actually going to literally fall down in the alley and hurt somebody. So there's the garage. We ended up knocking that down with the skid steer and building a new garage. That's one of the expenses I didn't anticipate from the beginning, but once I really got into that garage, I decided time to blow it up. So we took that down. It was a little tiny turn of the century brick garage, and it didn't really even equate to being able to get a modern day vehicle in there. So in hindsight, it wasn't that big a deal. We ended up framing up a new 2-car garage in the back off the alley. Right here. There was a deck back here originally, and there was exterior stairs that ran up to the unit in the back, the second-story unit, before we changed it back to the single family. And this deck was literally ready to fall down. There was also some water damage on the back end of the stucco in this house, so we had to tear all that off as well and re-stucco it. So we ended up building a new deck. It was one of the structural issues that came up that I needed to address. The other one was literally that the house in the alley, so if you can go back here, the easement side over here where there's drainage, it was a concrete curb. There was water infiltrating and getting down into the brick foundation and actually bringing the house. It was settling this way and towards the back. So we had a lot of what's called sleeper flooring that I had to do to level the floors, to true them out. We couldn't actually rip the entire house down, obviously, for the budget, but we had to get the structural finished and fixed first so that house would not continue to sink. And once we addressed that, we went in and sleepered all the floors, meaning we trued up the floors to put new flooring on top of basically shimmed flooring, new framing, a lot of interior insulation work was happening as well. We furred out the walls. This is a double white construction home, meaning there's a brick wall on the inside and a brick wall on the outside with a cavity in between those two walls. And obviously, turn of the century home, no insulation. That was not something that was really done at that time. In order to get it up to code, because of the permitting and what we were doing to the home, we had to get an R value that equated to current code. So solution, like we do a lot of times, is fur out the walls, which means framing on the inside of the brick. Right in here, you can see it's happening. And then insulation, just like you would do on a new home, to get everything up to code. Here's looking into the kitchen area from the dining room. We had to do the entire upstairs as well, rebuild all the bathrooms, rebuild it and create a master suite with a 5-piece bath. Toilet right in the middle of the room. Yep, more framing, furring out these walls upstairs as well. All the same thing, got all new windows, as I mentioned earlier. Here is the kitchen before we tore it apart. That was the downstairs kitchen. And then there's the kitchen, one of the pictures, not a great one, afterwards. So there's an example of a larger scale flip or renovation. Again, I wouldn't recommend doing anything like that as your first flip. You have to have a decent construction knowledge to kind of understand what's going to happen there. And again, with flipping, you don't have to be a general contractor or a builder. You really don't have to have any construction experience, but you need to build a team that you can trust, that you can trust with those types of skills and that information in order to guide you with your vision in place, if that makes sense. So again, you don't need to have construction experience, but you will gain that throughout this process. And this is something you can kind of decide to pick up later as you feel more comfortable doing these projects. So the last one I want to look at here is what I would call, this is basically rebuilding an entire home. I bought this house with the intention from the beginning of wanting to do a second story addition or popping the top. when I bought the home, and I'm going to find some old pictures here, this was a couple that was ready to expand, and it was in an up-and-coming, really hot neighborhood, again, in the Denver area, and it was one of the biggest turds on the block. They had sort of done a little bit of remodel work, albeit really cheaply done, I think just to get it show-ready. They had a baby on the way, and they were looking to get into a neighborhood that had bigger homes, and they just didn't think they could or wanted to take on a project that would entail building a second-story addition. It would be actually more economical for them just to buy a home that was larger and not have to deal with running a construction project and living in construction. So I bought this house with the intention of actually popping the top to create that bigger home, and I wanted to try and make it into a 4-bedroom, 3-bath from a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. So when I bought it, I had that budget in mind already, knowing that I'm gutting the home and ripping off the roof, which was one of the things that needed to be done. You can see the sag here. This roof had to be over 30 years old. And the intention was to tear this all out. This was just a fake dormer up here, by the way. There's just attic space. Redo all the MEP systems, landscaping, the whole 9 yards. This is like the biggest scale flip you can do without building a brand new home. And when I got into it, it was even worse than I had anticipated. And what I could have done was just repair and replace MEPs, all the systems, do a new roof. I should have kept it as a 2-bed, 1-bath. I could have actually added a bedroom in this home with the existing footprint, and then left it alone, put it right back on the market. But this is where it came back to bite me in the ass, and this is the stuff you have to be really careful about. Flipping projects are definitely risky, and you can certainly lose money. And as a matter of fact, the longer you do it, the more likely you will end up with a project where you lose money, and just a matter of how you prepare yourself for it. So I had to do a full abatement. Okay, any wall you're going to pull down, any sort of work, you need to understand what that means if you're going to get into bigger projects like this. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, I tore down the garage. There's the remnants. I saved a lot of the brick to reuse in the home, and then I tore off the roof and we rebuilt it. So here's us framing up, again, brand new first floor as well. This is framing up for the second floor. I opened up a big portion of the front room so it could actually have that more open concept look. And with knowing that I was going to do this anyway, structural was already in the equation. Where I got in trouble was I overbuilt and made the biggest, baddest house on the block, and I could not get the number I thought I was going to get because the market changed literally as I was working on this house. These bigger projects can take longer too, obviously. This took me about 7 months to complete between permitting and everything else. This is the original kitchen. Unfortunately, I could not save the floors based on the work that we were doing, so everything in here came out. Here's second floor framing. I squeezed 3 bedrooms up here, including the master, and a master bathroom and a guest bathroom as well. So there was 3 bedrooms and 2 baths upstairs. Spacious house once it was done, but it was definitely overbuilt. And this is a project, again, shouldn't be your first project by any means. This is requiring heavy construction knowledge. You're getting in trouble if you don't have that and you try and just go ahead and general contract your own project and PM it. You're going to get slapped in the face. You don't want to attempt this until you have experience. Again, you don't have to be a licensed contractor like me, but you need to have vast construction flipping experience before you get into projects like this. Can you make money on these? Absolutely. Can you get buried and bankrupt because of these? Absolutely. So you need to be very careful. There's a second story addition with the pine beetle, which there's what the truss is going up. And then finished house from the front. I kept the original brick on the first. I got a brand new kitchen. There's a couple pictures. It's literally a brand new house. This is looking out into that living area up front. If you can remember the living area, so in the framing, I had that open area in the front. You guys saw that big beam. This is right by the front door here. This opens into that main living area and then into the kitchen on the back side of that wall. Here's the guest bath downstairs. Here is the entry. I did, again, was able to keep some of that brick and keep the brick wall in this area and exposed it. Stairs going to the second floor, obviously. This is the front door right here. There's a dining area. I was able to keep that window. That's an original window. I got those sashes to work. So we kept some of the mystique and the architectural flair. This is the, again, pine beetle under the porch. I had to reside that porch. And there's the master suite. Nice big shower and tub. Again, nice big house, but it didn't need to actually be done. There's the vanity. Here's the guest bath upstairs. Another nice big shower. So, as you can imagine, a lot more money was spent on this one. This is quite a large project. Now, real quick, I'm going to go in and show you what happens when you get into this type of project and the amount of expense that cannot be foreseen that you undertake, especially in older homes when you're doing these kinds of renovations. This is a spreadsheet that I use to keep track of actual costs compared to estimates, and this is for my reference to go back to for future projects to see what went well and what didn't go well, and it's a good thing to have in your portfolio. You need to have spreadsheets, keep track of numbers in all aspects of the project. So I paid $257,000 for the home. My ARV originally was $550,000. I got realtor fees in here. My original estimate to rehab was $156,560, which would have given me a profit at that ARV of $103,000. The actual cost, I paid $257,000. I ended up selling the home because of changing market conditions and holding costs were killing me at $472,000 cash buyer. Realtor fees in here. I ended up spending $203,000, so I was $46,000 over budget. Okay, there's my loss. You can see the difference because there's no more money. I actually had to bring, where'd this money come from? This came from my own pocket. Okay, so when we talk about doing real estate with no money in your pocket, well, if you get into this situation, you're spending your own money or you're going to borrow more money from somebody else. Either way, it's a bad situation. So you can see the difference between these. I lost $14,000 on this house. Not good. And that's me bringing money to the table, okay? But there's the difference between estimate and actual costs of all of these things, these categories that I have in here from the beginning as I ran through my construction budget. And you can see all the red numbers in here. That means those categories are over budget, sometimes substantially over budget, okay? And this is with me having experience in construction, being a general contractor. Things change so dramatically. I mean, I ended up way over budget on even just general labor. So long story short, these are tricky projects if you get into this scale of a flip. And the biggest thing to take out of this is walking through and understanding what you're looking for and what you are flipping, right? And commit to that from the beginning. And if your gut tells you to scale back, scale back. If your gut tells you to walk away and get out of the contract, then get out of the contract. And that's the lesson to be learned here. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Glad I could share some of these projects with you as well. I appreciate bearing with me as I kind of broke this stuff down for you. And again, keep in mind we're doing other projects in the future. All right, so that's it for those examples.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. What are you flipping? This is the next video in the series, How to Flip a House. If you haven't seen the other videos, go back and watch those as well. How to calculate ARV and how to calculate rehab costs. Special shout out to Colt Real Estate, Lending Tips, and the Trading Fraternity. You can follow those guys on Instagram at Lending Tips and at the Trading Fraternity. Make sure you follow me at Shane Bailey Builder on Instagram. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications so you can get more of these videos as we're learning how to flip a house. And appreciate everything. Till next time, stay positive, be safe. Catch you guys in the next one.